Hey y'all, welcome. I hope y'all are enjoying this series. I've been enjoying interviewing people, being back on the podcast. And today I am so excited for this one because when she originally joined the group, I was like, oh, okay, God, this is a lesson. I have a lesson to grow as a coach because you have taught me so much, and we'll definitely get into it. But it has been a joy to watch her go through her journey and come out on the other side as a whole doctor. And so I would like to welcome you to the podcast. Please let us know who you are and how you're doing.
Sure. So my name is Dr. Pascale Edouard. Um, and I am, I guess I can just go into I graduated from the University of South Florida with my doctorate in public health last year, December of last year. Yeah. And currently, I am employed with a national nonprofit organization
Mm.
preparing the next generation of public health professionals, kind of how I went from teaching in academia to, doing something similar, but getting paid more money.
Mhm.
Whole nother conversation for a whole nother day.
Yes.
And also, I am newly the founder and CEO of Health Equity Innovations, which is my LLC that I recently launched. And
Mhm.
with this particular LLC, I focus on addressing or advancing health equity through program management, development, and all the things when it
Yeah.
comes to addressing the health of marginalized individuals. In a nutshell, just to kind of wrap it up, I am a Florida girl. I live in
Mhm.
Miami, the beautiful city of Miami. Our politics might be shitty, but you gotta
It's
love
so beautiful.
Miami.
Yes, yes. And I'm gonna start at the LLC and then I'll go back. But because I'm always curious, I'm always yelling at people like start it now. You do not have to wait to start it. And so I'm curious if you would have any words to say to the version of you from 2020. Let's even go to 2020, like about starting the LLC. Now that you have launched it and you're, telling people and working with people, what would you tell yourself in 2020 about what this took?
For me, I think in 2020, I would have told myself, just like, the Nike slogan, just do it.
Yeah.
Um, because I think what delayed me starting my LLC was the fact that I felt like I had to have my degree in
Yeah.
order to start my LLC. And to be completely transparent, this LLC has been, the idea has been with me for about 7 years now.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
but I felt like I didn't have all the things, or I didn't know all the things in order to start it. And once I completed my dissertation, it was just like, just do it. Like,
Yeah.
what else more do you need?
Mhm.
So yeah, that's what I would tell my 2020 version of myself. Like, girl, just do it. Like, you got this.
And for people who may be wondering, who do you work with and how do you work with them exactly?
With my LLC.
Mhm.
So it is, in full transparency, I literally just launched it in
Mhm.
like May. So like right now it's more so promotion and getting
Yep.
information out there. So with my LLC, the intent is to work with organizations, both community-based and faith-based organizations that are focused on improving the health of primarily people of color. And so how do I work with them?
Mhm.
So there are a couple of different services that I offer. So services from grant writing support to health education. And in the fall, I'll also be doing group health coaching. I'm in the
Mhm.
background doing like getting my
Yeah.
certification for health coaching.
Yeah.
That's how I'll primarily be working with those that I will be serving. And then with the faith-based portion of it,
Mhm.
I'll be helping faith-based communities establish comprehensive health ministries, because that's one of the
Mhm.
things that I've
Yeah.
noticed,
Mhm.
especially within Black churches. Like, we'll have like a health ministry, but it's not a robust health ministry, and because a lot of our faith-based organizations don't necessarily have, but I would say, the support and the resources needed
Yeah.
to provide a robust or comprehensive health ministry for their congregation members.
Listen, let's just do the Daniel fast once a year, and that's all we need. Why we need more?
Right, right.
I love it. And I mean, for what this is worth, I'm so proud of you because it still takes courage to do this, and it takes courage to talk to people about it. And people think it would be easier after you get your letters, but I find watching other people that it's harder because now you have the pressure of like people expecting you to go out and do these particular jobs or probably faculty, and you're like, oh, you're gonna start this? Why? Like, just focus on the research. And it's like, because I had dreams before I did this.
Yeah.
So not everyone does that. And so congratulations to you.
Thank you. Thank
Sincerely.
you. Yeah, you're right. It does take courage.
Hmm.
Big girl courage because, with, the courage, like behind the courage, before you get to the courage, I think like we're always, that imposter syndrome is
Hmm.
still there. Like you feel like, although you have like the letters to your name, sometimes well, at least for me, I struggle with like, well, am I the right person to do
Yeah.
this? Like, can I do this?
Yeah.
So it does take a lot of courage and faith.
Mhm. And meanwhile, I'm like, you wrote a whole dissertation. What do you mean? Of course you could do this. You do it with your eyes closed. Just go do it. Right. But it's not that, it's not that simple. And so I rewind when you joined Qual Scholars, I was still just trying to figure out what to do with it. I was at that point, it would have been like 2.5 years in, and I was
Mhm.
primarily working with folks one on one, but had did this random experiment, if you will, of what would it look like if we just wrote together in a group every Sunday? And then that had evolved into twice on Sunday, Sunday in the morning, Sunday in the evening, and like, oh, let's add a Wednesday. And it was my way of trying to play around with a group. I did
Mhm.
so, if I remember correctly, when you came in, I had started to really say, okay, I'm gonna do the group component. And shortly after is when I officially was like, it's called Finish Your Dissertation.
Mhm.
And I just distinctly, because I want to talk about the comment I made earlier in the introduction about like, God, is this a lesson? And what I mean by that is when you came in, I have this particular coaching session in my head, group coaching session. And I think I was trying to get you to take a Saturday off or take a day off. And you were like, no, I have a schedule. And I was like, what? What am I really? What are we talking about? I just want her to take a day off. But what you didn't know is that I was having my own private battle of, do I do actual coaching in this group or do I just stick to the helping people, have outlines and dissertations? And you were very monumental in like, no, we need the coaching part too. Like
Mhm.
there's like if this was just about writing, if this was just about dissertating, and everybody would be able to do it like if they had a plan, but this is
Right.
so much more important. And what I learned from you is yes, have the courage, even if she doesn't get it, keep asking her to take a break because it untapped in me to make me realize like I cared about you as a person and I cared
Mhm.
about you having balance. And I was like, and I'm willing for her to be pissed at me if that means she takes a nap because I'm fighting because I was like, I'm really just fighting for her to take a nap. And as you go on in business, your clients will be your biggest teachers. People think
Mhm.
you have to have it all together and you have to have all the answers. No, the people you work with are going to teach you so much. They're going to, and because also what you taught me is like, oh, I need to show up. Like she needs me to show up in a certain way so she can hear me. Not that I need to not be who I am,
Mhm.
but like the scholar basics became very important to me at that point. I was like, I need a way for people to track on a daily basis. Like, this is what it means to take care of myself and have a system. And so I don't know, that's probably all over, but I want to say thank you for that. But when you came in, I was like, every day after calling, like, I just want to take a nap. Like, am I doing something wrong? I just want her to stop. But I do want to talk about what was a part, if you remember, like what was a part of your decision for joining and what was, yeah, your doctoral process looking like at that point?
Yeah. So I remember I joined in July of 2019. Yeah. And I had just finished taking, like, completed my courses through my program. And it was just like, okay, now you got to start your dissertation
Mhm,
process. At the time, I was the first person, I am the first person in my family
mhm,
to have embarked on this journey. I didn't have a blueprint. Essentially, I was the blueprint. And so I had to like figure it out.
Yeah.
And in the course of trying to figure it out, I think probably during one of like my moments of procrastination on Facebook, I learned about Qual Scholars, and I was just like, let me try this. I mean, at this point, it can't hurt. Because I felt like at the time I wasn't making as much of a dent that I wanted to
Yep.
in my dissertation writing process. That, and I believe at the time, like I like knew or became acquainted with the power of working in community
Mhm.
with people who have like the same goals. Because I think at the time I was either wrapping up like a career coaching
Mhm.
program that I was doing. So I was just like, okay, I saw how effective that was. Let me try this for my dissertation. And so I signed up, and best decision
Yeah.
I would say that I made, because with joining Qual Scholars, Dr. Marvette, you provided us with like literally when you said the coaching, because the coaching was very important as far as like providing those skill sets that we needed in order to make it from A to Z, from the start line to the finish line for
Mhm.
our dissertation. As I think at the beginning when I first joined, I wasn't as intentional as far as like planning. So like with those
Mhm.
scholar basics, like planning what your week would look like, what are your goals for your week?
Mhm.
And so I think those are one of like the huge lessons that I learned during my time with Qual Scholars, was the effectiveness and the importance of planning and goal setting for the week in order to get you through. I mean, that's something that I still use till this day at work and in my
Yeah.
personal life, is the weekly planning. But okay, so that's how I joined.
Yep.
So as far as like, I guess like my dissertation process, or yeah.
Mhm.
So I joined in 2019, and then I completed the program. And I use the word loosely completed because I
Yeah.
know 2022, 2023, I was just kind of like all over the place with like different things going on in my life. So I wasn't
Mhm.
as active in Qual Scholars. So, just for point of reference, I completed it in 2023. And during those 4 years, I believe I had like a lot of transitions happen.
Yep.
And most of those transitions were job related.
Yep.
Um, so I think I
Real.
probably had like three throughout the 4 years. Yeah, three jobs throughout the
Mhm.
4 years of my participation in Qual Scholars. And I think one of my biggest challenges that came about was when the last job that I had with Qual Scholars, I decided to leave my job with the county and go teach.
Mhm.
Like, again, I'm a Florida girl. I left Florida to go to the Midwest,
To
Iowa.
Iowa, y'all. So it's Iowa.
And that was an experience in of itself, because at the time I thought that I wanted to teach, and I did, to be
Mhm.
honest, but that experience for me put things into perspective. And so at the time, I was juggling learning how to be a professor, and at the time also working on my dissertation, which was
Mhm.
a lot, to like mind
Mhm.
blowing a lot. And so I really, and I think also at the time I didn't have time to join, the regular Qual Scholars calls. Because I was so tired. So it wasn't as routine as it normally
Yeah.
was before getting that job. And so it was like every now and then I would join. So I wasn't as consistent. However, to address like my inconsistency, I had to find other tools
Mhm.
to help me with my dissertation writing. So some strategies that I ended up using to help push me towards the finish line
Mhm.
included tapping into some of the women that were part of my program, not necessarily the same cohort.
Oh, okay.
So I ended up doing writing sessions with them. And these were like from 7 to 11, or like later on in the evening when I had time to focus on my dissertation. And then I also learned about there was like Focus Mate that I
Mhm.
did. Too was another tool that I used to help
Is
me,
that like a app or
so with Focus Mate, it's similar to, what we did with our group coaching,
okay.
but it's a online program
Oh,
where
okay.
you not even a program, an online website where you meet and work with like anyone
Mm.
across the world for like 25, 50, 75 minute sessions now on like a particular task, and you hold each other accountable. So I log like, I think I'm at like maybe 1,000.
Oh, wow. So it's called Focus Mate,
Yeah, Focus
right?
Mate.
Okay, I'll put that in the show notes. Okay.
So I did that, and then also, excuse me, also the Forest app.
Mhm.
So with some of the women that we worked with or that I was introduced to through Qual Scholars, we would plant trees together while focused on, either dissertation or work related tasks too. So those are the ways that I was able to like address some of the hurdles or the challenges that I experienced with like getting a new job in academia and being able to juggle and
Mhm.
balance it all.
Listen, I'm like, things. I got notes. I'm like, focus me. As someone with ADHD, I'm like, I need a person to be there with me often. So that I'm sure a lot of people listening was like, yes, let me take notes and do the same thing. I also want to get into your dissertation because when you told me what you were focusing on and design of it, I was like, okay. And for context, y'all, like at some point, I want to figure out a way to demonstrate different people's like dissertations and like how much work goes into it. Because different programs have different cultures. Let
Yeah.
me just say that. And you may be thinking, I don't know if we directly had this conversation, but I remember having this feeling talking with you of like, oh, this isn't enough. And my brain was like, this is a whole project that you probably would do as a tenure track faculty that you're about to, and you would have like research assistants that you're about to undertake yourself.
Mhm.
And so I don't know if it felt that way for you, but first, would you be willing to tell us about your work and yeah, kind of like your take on that? Did it feel like a lot or?
It was most definitely a lot. And I think that's how I ended up getting this job that I have now. So, my dissertation, can I like for context let them know how I got to this
Yeah,
topic?
yeah.
Because my initial proposal had to do with like addressing type 2 diabetes, specifically like having a program, diabetes education program, like tweaking the CDC's program or adjusting it to fit the needs of like lower income communities who didn't have the capacity to dedicate a year towards a diabetes prevention program. It was pre-pandemic, right? In 2019, had it all mapped out, did my qualifying exams, passed, and I was ready to hit the ground running. COVID happened,
Mhm,
right? So
mhm,
COVID happened, and I essentially could not do the same study because our program didn't want us like meeting with individuals and knowing my population. They had limited access to internet and everything, so I had to pivot and write my proposal all over again.
yeah.
So my dissertation topic ended up focusing on the impacts of residential segregation on type 2 diabetes management among African Americans living in like Florida. And to answer Marvette's question, it was a lot. For one person, especially me, because I wanted to interview, I think at the time, like 20 individuals from both residentially segregated and non-segregated communities. It was a mixed method study with both qualitative and quantitative data collection. And I think for me, the recruitment piece was like the biggest part. I felt like, in hindsight, if I had someone helping me, it would have been
Mhm,
great
mhm,
instead of me taking it all on. It was, to answer your question, most definitely a lot from the initial proposal to the final proposal and completing it. And there were like a lot of hurdles, like recruitment. I had recruitment issues. I wanted to interview 20 people. When it came down to it, I was only able to interview like 5 people from
mhm.
residentially segregated communities. So it was most definitely a lot for one person. Yeah.
But listen, you did that, and there are people right now who are like, "No, tell me your ways because you got to the other side and you sound like you over here thriving. I just want to be like you." So, like, what's the secret?
I think, you talked about earlier self-care and how I like struggled with that. I still struggle with it.
It's real.
So I think like self-care is important because throughout literally, I was thinking about this the other day, like throughout the whole course of my dissertation, one of the things that's always been at the top of my list is like physical activity and physical fitness. So that's one of the things, even in Iowa, in the cold, the Florida girl in the cold, never seen
Mm,
snow, driving to the gym to, make sure like physically I
yeah.
was well. I still maybe don't know how to take naps, but that's okay.
I don't like them, so I get it. I tell people all the time, I'm like, I don't if you want me to be grumpy all day, then I'll take a nap, but I don't like naps. So, mm-mm.
Yeah, yeah, I don't it's not routine that I take naps. If I take a
Mhm.
nap, I have to be very tired. But I think, yeah, how'd I get it done? I think was self-care was an important factor as far as like completing my dissertation, also dedication. I knew I wanted to finish, like, and there was like no reason for me not to finish, especially living in Iowa where there were no distractions besides teaching and my students.
Mhm.
That, and I think also I'm grateful for my dissertation chair, Dr.
Mhm.
Sappenfield, learning how to, and he's a tough cookie, but learning how to like advocate for myself, and expressing to him like, I'm frustrated because I can't figure, A or B, C
Yeah.
out or whatever. So being just very transparent in my emotions and my feelings completing my dissertation was also very important. Just, for me, just knowing that, we have like this saying. I went to Miami Northwestern for high school, and our principal at the time had the saying that failure is not an option. And so for me,
Mhm.
failure was not an option with my dissertation. I came this far. So
Yeah.
it's just like, I am going to finish it. Yeah. And then just like support, having a circle of support, whether or not that was my family or the girls from the women from Qual Scholars, were
Mhm.
also very important factors in completing my dissertation. I saw like, the some of the women that I was close with, graduating. So Alex and Tasha
Mhm.
and Elizabeth and Margaret. So they were like, my motivation to also complete my dissertation. Like, you got to get this done. You got to be part of
Yeah.
that. What is it? 100 is your goal?
Yeah, 100. Mhm. Yes. And the name is on the board, y'all. Mm. I something you said earlier about due to the pandemic and your program being like, nope, you can't go out and physically talk to people. You like rushed past it, but you said I had to rewrite my proposal and clutches pearls. What you mean you had to rewrite your proposal? And how was that like? How did you not just say, forget this? I don't want it. Y'all can have it. I'm not rewriting that thing.
You know, Fortunately for me, I think and maybe you talked about this too, during some of your coaching sessions, like the whole idea of like just finishing, and you want like although you might want like your dissertation project to be like the bomb.com, and you have all these multiple ideas. Sometimes those ideas are for later. So I
Mm,
think one of the things that you talked to us about is having a parking lot or like a notebook where it's like
mhm,
the parking lot, like future ideas. And right before the pandemic, I went to an American Public Health Association conference. And I think at the time, the conference was focused on how like racism is a public health issue. So
mhm.
in that notebook, I had like a lot of ideas as far as like research that I
Yeah.
wanted to do, like post dissertation. And so when I had to rewrite my proposal, I went back to that notebook, like, what can I pull? Like, you know, that'll help, or what's the word I'm looking for, align with like my
Mm,
original proposal. And so that's
mhm.
what helped guide me with the rewrite of my proposal. And maybe I passed through, quickly, stated I
Yeah.
had to rewrite my proposal, is because I found that like my second proposal was I don't know the word to use. It was a little bit more inspirational for me
Mm, mhm.
than my first proposal, because like my first proposal, I think really it connects like and this is how you come full circle to things. My first proposal is connecting now back to like health equity
Yeah.
innovations.
Yeah.
um so yeah, it was a lot rewriting it, but it also like inspired me. I felt really more so as like a scholar with
Mhm.
writing my second proposal compared to my first proposal, where I felt more so like a practitioner in the field. I don't know if that makes sense.
Oh, it makes so much sense. Oh, but because I'm gonna say something, but before I do that, I have to do this because I hear somebody who's listening and they want to know how many pages roughly about was your first one and how many pages was your second one?
Ooh, the proposal,
Mhm.
I honestly do not remember.
Would have been around like my assumption, because I feel like you come from a more traditional program, would have been more of like the 50 to 70 page range? 'Cause for context, some programs say a proposal is like 4 to 10 pages, like it's just one
Oh
chapter.
no, ours was
And so,
more.
and so some the more traditional will say like, no, full 3 chapters, that's your proposal. So I just wanted to give context for people.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
like with our program, we had to write 4 chapters for our proposal.
Okay.
So it had to most likely be a little over 100 pages.
I just wanted to say that because what I was about to say next too is like, yes, everything you said makes sense. And one, I want to again give you your flowers, the courage to do that. Because a lot of people will say, no, I did all this work to the first one. That's not fair. And they would get lost and it's not fair. But I love how you said I felt more like a scholar because that is all I'm fighting for people to do is like when you can write something one time, the second, third, fourth, fifth time, it's
Mm,
nothing because you're so much more clear on your ideas, how you want to express yourself. Now
right.
that you have you have a lay of the land of like, this is what it means to write a proposal. It's like, okay, now I can get more creative. I can
Hmm.
dig deeper in ways that you can't when it's your first time because you're doing something for the first time. And
Right.
so a lot of what I've been preaching more so lately is we're just going to assume that you have to rewrite every chapter 5 times because if you can wrap your head around that, you can let go of this idea. I don't know, people have this very like this sense of urgency of I have to get done, like the whole dissertation is to be done in one day or it's not worth it. I'm not doing it right. And it's like, no, writing is a thinking. Writing is getting your ideas fleshed out. Writing, like you don't even know what the research is going to be and probably until the second, third, fourth, fifth draft. So
Yeah.
let's so I love that you said that. That made sense, complete sense to me.
Yep. It was a process, but
Mhm.
it was worth it in the end. I can say
Yeah.
that in hindsight because I know like those of who are going through the process are like, oh girl, no, not
Yeah.
me.
And so what did you tell yourself as like when you're writing or if you can remember because there's a lot of stories that we have especially as students around our writing. And so what was that like for you?
The writing part.
Yeah, the writing.
For me, I would say like the writing part. Again, I guess like for me, the writing part, and I can't separate the writing from the research and reading part. I think
Mhm.
that's what my mind keeps going back
Yeah,
to.
okay. Yeah, yeah.
Because like when I was reading like the work of scholars who were like, invested in like how racism impacts health, like it for me, again, the word inspirational comes up because it made me realize or helped me to realize that okay, there are people who care, or scholars, if you will, or academics, whatever you want to call
Mhm.
them, who have like the same particular interests and passions as I do, and who are doing work in the field of public health to address these issues. So like for example, one of them, Dr. Chandra Ford, I think at UCLA, I think I might get the school wrong. She was like one of my biggest inspirations
Mhm.
because she was doing public health practitioner or
Mhm.
scholar, who had like a ton of work. There's one praxis that she created, the public health critical race
Mm.
praxis, and that was like, okay, girl, like this is it. And
Yes.
so as I read her research and I was writing, it gave me a little bit more, I guess, momentum in my writing practices because it really informed what my dissertation would focus on. And she was actually at like the APHA conference and she
Mm.
spoke. And I think that's what like really introduced me to her, was her speaking at the APHA conference. I don't know if I answered your question or
Oh,
if I'm
yeah,
just
no.
rambling.
No, this is beautiful. What I hear you saying is like the importance of possibility models, the importance of seeing other people in the field, whether they look like you, they're doing similar research, that you like, if they can do it, I could do it.
Yeah.
Like at a base level is what I'm hearing. And it's important. And I know a lot of people look at that and be intimidating. It's like, no, you have to remember, right? She was a student at one point too,
Yeah.
but she made her way from a student to now you are like looking at her and being like, okay, yep, I know where I'm going. And you may not have the same exact career, but we need those people along the way to say it could look like this. And
Yeah.
if that means this is what I'm going to use to make sure I like sit down to write, that's what I'm going to do. Cause I tell people all the time, like I would watch videos. Now, this is strange sometimes when people meet me, but I'm like, Eric Thomas was in my ears every day. I did not start a writing session without
You
him
did
yelling
say
at
that.
me.
I
Like,
remember that.
and I'm like, because he finished his dissertation, I'm finishing it too. We're doing this together. Chicago, stand up. But like, I know he claimed Detroit, but yeah, he's from Chicago. That's a side note. Anyway, um, But yeah, but the importance of having people like a village, and you mentioned support being one of the biggest reasons why you made it through this process. And support is not always people who are in person or family members. Sometimes it's people across the field.
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. And for me, when I think, about support, like, I had that support during the dissertation process. And as I'm embarking on, like, my business journey, that also is like something that's important to me, like surrounding myself with like entrepreneurs. They may not be in public health, but just like, Black women
Yep.
entrepreneurs who are going after their entrepreneurial dreams is something that's very important to me because it's hard. Like you can't do this work alone.
Yeah.
From the dissertation to starting a business, you can't do this work alone. And you find that like there's a saying in Creole, me un pile shai palu, like when you have a lot of hands, the load isn't heavy.
Mhm.
Which goes back to the support system. Like you have to have a support system, I think, in anything in life, from dissertation to,
Yeah.
starting your own business, because without it, I think you'll find that you might flounder, you might,
Mhm.
yeah. So yeah, support is very, very important.
Mm. Writing the proposal is one thing. Collecting the data is another thing. How was data collection for you?
Not curse.
Oh, yes, yes.
So data collection literally beat my ass.
Yeah.
I started collecting data. So it was before I left, because at the time I was living in Bradenton, or like the Tampa Bay area. And I had passed my proposal, or passed my well, I didn't have to do a second qualifying exam, but they gave me the green light to go ahead to start collecting data.
Mhm.
And so this had to be during the summer, yes, summer of 2021. As I'm getting ready to move, I started collecting data, or like recruitment, for
Yep.
both my interviews and my surveys.
Mhm.
And so during that process, so that was summer of 2021, I did not wrap up data collection until about, give or take, of 2023. So about a year and a half almost.
Mhm. Yeah.
And what I found, like some of the issues that I ran into was like bot responses through
Yep.
Qualtrics was one of the issues
Mhm.
that I ran into. So I had so-called people, in quotation marks, completing my Qualtrics survey. However, when it came time to reach out to them for interviews, like, and I was sending them I sent them what is it called, gift cards,
Yeah.
Amazon gift cards for completion of the interview. And I think they were like $20 gift cards. And so I send them out and they all receive them, but then when it came time to follow up for interviews, literally wrong phone numbers or non-operational phone numbers.
Yeah.
So that's where I really had an issue with with
Mm.
my study, was having a good number of people to do interviews with. And I think, as I'm speaking this out loud, it speaks to like I guess like the validity
Yeah.
of my Qualtrics data, or like my quantitative data,
Mhm.
after realizing that I had bot responses. And so, yeah, I think that was one of the biggest challenges, because at come March, I reached out to my chair and I was just like, look, Bill, like this ain't gonna happen.
Uh,
Like I have 5 interviews, and at this point, like I'm ready to call it a day,
yeah.
because there's no way. And with those 5 interviews, again, going back to support, I relied on my mom.
Mm. Listen, mamas be coming through, y'all. I
Yeah.
think about Alex. Her mama was like, and I got you like 5 people from church. And then she's like, Mama, they don't even fit my criteria. Okay, girl.
Exactly. And that's how my mom was too. Like she was finding people for me to interview, and most of them did not fit my criteria. But she got me 5 solid ones. And I was just like,
Yes.
we're going to run with these 5 solid ones. But yeah, data collection was a beast. But I think that, like, once you get through the writing process, the data collection part, I think, is like the second hardest part of at least for me. I don't know if
Yeah.
anyone feels the same way, but that was like the second hardest or challenging part of the dissertation, because you have this plan, but your plan is like, it doesn't go as planned, because
Yeah.
you're dealing with people and all these external factors that influence your data collection.
And to be clear, y'all, it's mixed methods, right? So there's like multiple things that you have to keep in your mind, and like there's a schedule too, and you're like,
Mhm.
am I gonna get enough responses for the second part to be able to kick off? And yeah, I love that you were like, listen, Bill, what we doing? Because this ain't it. And how was that response?
One of the things that I learned, again, Bill is tough, or Dr. Sappenfield, he is tough. Like I shouldn't say tough. He comes off intimidating, and so I had to get past that.
hmm
And so he was receptive to it as long as I could back up, because he told me, and this is where, like, I appreciated him, because he was like, okay, we need to get with the rest of your committee and let them know, like, literally A through Z, everything that you've done to like get your, to help out
hmm
with your recruitment. So he helped me advocate for myself, and saying that, I've tried. I've
Yeah.
tried in more ways than one, and this is the outcome. And so he was receptive to me being like, I'm ready to graduate, but these are the numbers that I have. And
Yeah.
at this point, I want to move forward, because I've been collecting data for almost like a year and a half, and this ain't it.
And I would say too, like a lot of times people are like, "Oh, it didn't go to plan, so I did it wrong." I'm like, to me, that's a finding in itself. Because there is no way that your committee could have even prepared you or even known to be like bots would be an issue, because that's a newer thing in this internet world.
Mhm.
And I mean, now you know, and you can help, folks who are coming after you and any future projects, like try to look into some solutions, but it's still a threat. Like
Right.
if Facebook can't even figure it out, right? And they have all the resources, like it's gonna take a while. And so that's definitely something for folks to know
Right.
as they're putting out links, and especially when you have a financial incentive.
Yep. I don't know where those
Yeah.
Amazon gift certificates landed, but they're out there somewhere.
Listen, you followed your ethics. You did what you said you were gonna do. So like you're getting so and you ask your chair to like, hey, help. Like, okay, that's what we need. Let's make the case to the committee. You move forward. How was the analysis and the writing of the final chapters? Because this is where I see a lot of people get stuck too, which people don't think they will get stuck here, but I do see it.
I didn't get stuck
No,
in
you
my
didn't.
writing.
You didn't.
Yeah.
You were going. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't get stuck with like my writing and the analysis part. It was, and I feel like that's where I got the most momentum. I was just like, girl, you about to be done. So
I think what probably helped was the year and a half of data collection, because most people are
probably.
trying to get their collection done in a couple of weeks, and you don't have time to process. A
Mhm.
year and a half, you had time to process and be like, listen, if I get the green light, I don't care what nobody's saying. I'm writing these words on the page. We're moving
Right.
forward. Yeah.
Right. I think maybe like the hardest part was like, for the data analysis part, was cleaning up the data.
Mm,
Um, yeah,
mm.
that part was maybe like the most aggravating, but I don't think like past that part, I struggled as much. And then again, I sound like a broken record saying support.
Oh, tell the
While I
people
was
again, because they be out here trying to do it by themselves. Tell them again.
Yes, support. Reach out to your networks and your friend groups, because one thing that helped me, so like I'm not strong in like data statistics or analysis. So while I was in Iowa, I made a really good friend, my brother from
Mhm,
another mother,
mhm,
Rajan, and he had biostat statistical background. He can do it like literally in his sleep.
mm,
And so I reached out to him to, make sure that my data analysis methods were correct and I was getting the right input. And I also got like some resources from Bill too. So between the both of them, they really helped me with the data analysis part, because I was good with the qualitative part of it, but the quantitative data
mm.
analysis, that's where I struggled a little bit and got assistance. But yeah, I feel like the writing the final chapters weren't that once I got past the results section
Mhm.
and writing out my results, that was good. And then simultaneously while writing out my results, I'm an overachiever. So two of my products for my
Mhm.
dissertation were manuscripts.
Okay,
So
yeah.
so I was writing two manuscripts while
That makes
also,
sense.
yeah.
Yeah, because
And
you're
that took a
already
while.
yeah, because you're already thinking about data in that way, and what I feel like people can make the mistake is thinking, oh, I need to put this all in my dissertation. And what I love about what you're saying is like, I'm going to get these 2 manuscripts out while it's
Yep.
fresh on my mind and I'm going to still finish this up. No, I love that.
Yeah, I was working
Mhm.
on data analysis and those two manuscripts at the same time. So even with like while I was in the data collection phase, I started my manuscripts because it was just like there's no time wasted.
Yeah.
So, use my time effectively as far as like getting to the end.
Mm. No, listen, I love a good plan of double dipping. What I don't like people doing is like, I can only put this in my dissertation. I'm like, if you don't get that out or leave it for the future and move on, like, okay, I'm not gonna go off on a tangent because I want to be respectful of time. It was the final defense what you thought it was going to be?
Mean, I had an expectation of what it would be based off of, some of my friends who completed before me. What I can speak to is like after the final dissertation, like,
Okay.
or the final defense, like feelings associated with it.
Yes, tell us about the feelings. Tell us.
So, after it, I didn't want to do anything. All I did was like binge watch TV.
Tell me
Like,
again.
I
What was you
didn't want to
doing?
do anything,
Yes.
binge watch TV, talk about rest. That's when I rested.
Yes.
I didn't go anywhere. And at that time, I ended up moving back home to Miami with my parents. Literally, I was in my room all the time. I was sleeping. Hell, if you didn't know better, you thought I was pregnant. That's how much sleeping I was.
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
and I thought like I gave myself because I did my defense in December and I told myself, okay, March. I had all these plans. March, I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna start doing things. Nope, March came around and I was just
Nope.
like, I'm still tired. I'm still
Say it.
tired now.
Say it again. 'Cause listen, I'm being petty because I tell people I'm like, oh, a good year. Like, because people say, yeah, I'm gonna sleep when I'm done. But I think people think, oh, I'll sleep for a week. No, you're gonna
No.
be like, give yourself a solid year before you feel any semblance of a normal or a baseline.
Yeah, because even like, I was telling my friend, I feel like I had so much capacity to do like, because I think this is something that you told me too, like, you need to learn to say no during our
Mhm.
coaching sessions. So I had like a million and one things going on while doing my dissertation. And so now that I'm done, I feel like I don't have as much
Mm-mm.
capacity to continue doing a million and one
Mm-mm.
things while working full time. And this is something I'm still kind of getting over. Or trying not to beat myself up about because
Yes.
I don't have that level of capacity anymore. So to your point, yes, I do think like it does take a full year to kind of
Yeah.
come back refreshed.
Listen, this is giving me an idea to do a whole episode on another one about after the dissertation because there's a level of survival mode you were operating from that you have to get to the end that you
Mhm.
have to come down from. And that is you're not going to operate the same way you did as a student for good reasons, but we'll say that. Reflecting over your time, what any words of advice that you would give to people who are at the beginning or in the middle of this process?
I think words of advice I would say is just stick to it.
Mm.
It sounds, it's easier said than done. Yeah, you're gonna go through challenges or experience life challenges. That's life, period. But I think you also have to find that level of resiliency in yourself in order to overcome those challenges, especially with the dissertation process. Because, and I think we spoke about this, is that life doesn't stop during the dissertation process. So you have to learn how to like manage it all. And it is a lot. During the dissertation process, you have life, you have family, and if you're married with kids, ooh, Lord Jesus. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, I think you have to like really tap into your resiliency within to kind of keep going towards meeting your goal of like accomplishing the dissertation. Like, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time?
Mhm.
So you have to like stay consistent with like, even if it's 30 minutes a day, that's fine. But as
Yeah.
long as you're making progress every day towards that goal.
Steady progress, y'all. There's no race. We don't
No,
need to rush. So if someone's on the fence about joining the Finish Your Dissertation program, what would you tell them?
I would say there's no reason. to be on the defense. I think it'll probably be the best decision that you make because A, not only will you finish your dissertation, you may not finish it within like the year's time frame that you
Yeah.
give you because that's not realistic. And I shouldn't say it's not realistic. But I think you'll find that, there are a lot of sacrifices that you'll have to make in order.
Say it again to the people in the
Yeah.
back who think
There are a lot of
sacrifices.
sacrifices that you'll have
Yes.
to make to finish your dissertation in a year's time frame. And as long as you're okay with, those sacrifices, by all means, okay. But I think that was something I had to like be honest and transparent with myself about. Like, you can't finish this in like 2 years, Pascal. And that was like a hard lesson for me. But okay, in addition to, finishing the dissertation with the support from Qual Scholars, I think you also build like this beautiful family of
Mm,
women that you'll connect with and continue to have like
yeah.
relationships with after the dissertation because of those, those however many years you all spent
Mhm.
writing together and getting group coaching sessions together is important. So yeah, I would say like Nike, just do it. You will not regret it. And if
Yes.
anything, you'll thank yourself in the end for joining Qual Scholars.
Oh, Pascal, thank you so, so much for coming on. Listen, there's going to be some people who this is going to be their favorite episode because the things you touch on, we just don't hear enough of this type of conversation. So, thank you for sharing your experience, your wisdom. I will definitely put all of your links and things in the show notes. I'll go learn about her, follow her on all the social medias, follow her entrepreneurial journey as well as because the academics don't stop.
And
Um,
don't.
and to use her as a possibility, a model that you could do both. You don't have to choose, y'all. You don't have to choose, and it doesn't have to cost you or your well-being. So, thank you for doing that, and yeah, that's gonna be a wrap.
No problem. Thank you so much, Dr. Lacy.
Yes.